Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the DXM podcast. I am your host, as always, Colborn Bell, and I am joined today by Matthew and Misha, founders of Arsnl. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Hi, Colborn. Thanks.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure to have you today. I am going to really get out of the way here. We're going to start where we always start, and that is just going to give both of you the space to introduce yourselves, tell us a bit about your background, and tell us what you've been working on.
Sure. Maybe I could start. So Misha Liebman, I'm previously from another platform called Art. I've been in the space for a while, since 2018. About a year ago, we started talking with Katarina Feder, who is another co-founder from our team. She is originally from Artist Rights Society, which, for those of you that don't know, is a preeminent intellectual property organization in the United States representing over 120,000 artists. Basically, it's anyone from the estates and foundations of artists like Picasso or Dali to any of the contemporary artists like Marina Abramovich or Damien Hirst. And what Katarina was really keen on exploring, and we started having these conversations about a year ago, is the potential to activate some of these traditional artists or estates and foundations and explore blockchain as a potential conduit for their new projects or iterations of some of the older projects that could be done as collaborations between, I don't know, it could be crypto artists or it could be any artist with an estate or foundation of one of these legacy artists. And so this was a quite exciting opportunity. And we launched about 6 months ago with Frank Stella, which was an amazing experience and a beautiful drop. We worked with an 86-year-old Frank to kind of reimagine his sculptural works, which were always created as a digital product, as CAD models with 3D printing going back to late 80s. And so we tried to reimagine it as a Web3 type project, existing strictly in digital, but having this component that people can bring the works into the analog space through 3D printing or other mechanics. So yeah, I'll stop there. And Matt, go for it.
Hi. Well, I'll just do a little bit of my background, and we can talk a lot about these projects. But I'm in Los Angeles. I have an artistic background. I did some early digital art stuff that was in Rhizome. I made a movie once that got picked up by Hulu. Did a lot of marketing for entertainment and just some weird collaborations and stuff with different artists. I met Misha in July of 2021. We worked on a project together with him at Snark called Shitcoin with this artist Castles. It was really fun. Phillips Auction House did the sale. But after that, Misha and I became friends, and when he kind of pulled me into the Arsnl side, and we did the Stella drop together. Yeah, that's my quick background.
I love it, guys. Thank you for that. I want to take it back, Misha, to 2018. Tell me a bit about what you were seeing, what excited you, and perhaps maybe a bit about the evolution to how we got here today.
Sure. I mean, it's not that different than it is now in many ways. I still feel like the technology is there for artists to push and explore. We kind of started talking with Andre, my co-founder at the time, in early 18, kind of on the heels of all these projects like CryptoKitties and CryptoPunks. And the idea that was dominating in early 18 is this concept of digital scarcity and ability to track provenance and kind of like these loose interpretations of what digital ownership could be like. Essentially everything that we're seeing now, but at that time it was much more conceptual, and we had these two projects as sort of examples of what could be done. And at Snark, at that time, we were really kind of focused on this concept that what else is there? Like, can we push the tech a little bit more where the experience doesn't necessarily evolve around just ownership, but more about participation, engagement, interactivity? And so at that time, we worked with an artist, Eve Sussman, to come up with this project. She had the famous piece called 89 Seconds at Alcazar, which is in the collections of such museums as Museum of Modern Art in New York or Whitney Museum. And the concept around it was, can we think of this project as being collectively owned, but not as a fractional ownership, but more like where people would actually own fragments of the visual real estate of the video, and then they could choose whether or not they could, come together and piece it all together, or they choose not to share their visual real estate, and then the work has to be reconceived at each iteration what video will ultimately be playing. And it was super interesting for the artist. It was super interesting for us. We were probably a little bit ahead of our time in terms of just, we were pushing interactivity before people even understood the concept of digital ownership. But I do think, and I do hope that more projects of that nature come to fruition, especially nowadays where there's a lot more money, a lot more projects that are, entering the space, a lot more artists that are exploring the space, to try to think a little bit beyond just ownership, but more about kind of engagement, interactivity, these things that are right now labeled utility ultimately, but really it's up to the artist to conceive of what that is.
Cool. And Matt, I want to turn it kind of over to you, and just given your career as an artist, as somebody who's been close to Rhizome, as like a creator, what promise did you see in the tech, and kind of what pain points is it solving for? I wonder if you have any insight there.
I mean, it's mostly just super fun. I mean, Misha came into it way more OG than me. But when I came into it with Castles, we did shitcoin out of like Castles is this really great artist, a longtime friend of mine as well. And Castles is super smart and had this idea like to kind of, it's like, I'll go into the project a little bit. It was like to play with this idea of the tulip phenomenon, like the huge pump in prices that was happening during that summer. So Castles wanted to play with it. And so, I would say this is like conceptual performance art. So what we did here, we did an NFT performance art, and it was based off this work by Manzoni, he was this, in the 60s, he sold his own shit in cans, and he priced 30 grams of shit in terms of 30 grams of gold. And now, those works, there's, I can't remember, I think there's several dozen cans, but they go, one of them went for a couple $100,000. So, we were playing with this notion of that, and Castles is a transgender artist, and they were like, well, I'm going to go as a nom de plume, make this, I'm going to eat the diets of famous white male artists. And then if I make the shit that they make, is it the same, So like if I eat their diet, why make the same shit that they make? So there are all these like concepts going on with that. It was we did 1 drop per day where Castles ate the diet of a famous artist like Picasso, sold the canned shit using the style of Manzoni, and it was priced in Ethereum, so it was like a crypto project, but crypto gold. It was super fun. Phillips Auction House did the final part of it. So it was a secret until then. Then we did the reveal that this was the project all along, because people were wondering, who was it? They didn't know. And we had all these like Zoom calls in private, masking our voices. Castles had this mask and did these like fun photo shoots. So, at the end, Phillips did this auction, and I don't know, it was like this really cool performance. I just learned that, and I got a lot of respect in the community, and I just learned there's someone doing their PhD on shitcoin right now. So someone's entire doctorate thesis will be on this project. That's kind of a long way to answer your question, but like, that's what I mean, like the fun, like the performance art. I think kind of, it inspires people to learn a lot about themselves. And I love when finance and marketing and art and play and like this kind of absurdity all mixed together into one world. And to me, that's the promise of like NFTs in the blockchain, just the potential of community engagement and exploration of fun ideas in the big stage is really interesting to me.
It had so many different angles, and that's what made it sort of exciting, because every day we would try to mastermind a new form of attack with the project. And so the aspect where the project was released under the name White Male Artist, and all of the famous artists and their diets that Cassius ate were white male artists. And it's a common knowledge that if you look at the top sales of art in history, it really belongs to just white men. And the promise of blockchain has always been this concept that it's a more equitable kind of situation. It allows anyone to enter. And it was just interesting, really, for Cassius to go in at it without actually revealing, who is behind the project, because ultimately you're kind of starting from scratch. And boy, that was difficult. That's really hard. Yes, of course, you can be anonymous in blockchain space. There's artists like Pac and others who are kind of hiding, their identities. But if you want to market the project, if you want to get in front of people, you ultimately either have to reveal yourself, or you have to have a team or someone that will ultimately push you forward. And then if you looked at that time when we were releasing the project, the top sales in blockchain were still pretty much like probably white male, it just basically was not happening what people were saying. And so this was just another interesting aspect. And Matt was genius. He was like all over social media, like saying most like horrible things sometimes, the best post on Instagram was Mona Lisa with like signed, "Why don't you smile more like honey?" It was this type of attack. And a lot of friends of Cassius and a lot of friends of ours were getting really angry at some of this messaging. This was the project. That was the idea, to just push the boundaries. And again, this is where maybe what gets me excited, because it's not just about NFTs and the technology, it's about the art, right? Like the number one question always in my mind is, where's the art in this, right? And if the project challenges you, it pushes some ideas, it makes you think, it makes you feel, that's it. You feel it if it's there. And so this was exciting to try to, even though ultimately it's just 30 cans of shit, it as an NFT, yet it has all these different dimensions as far as pushing people to think and feel.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so many things. I'll just say first, love the point about just like NFTs being able to capture generally what is the ephemeral of performance art, right? Being able to like have that timestamp to be a moment in time and capture things that are generally just fleeting. I remember getting those DMs for the project, and I'm like, here is an anonymous person trying to sell me a can of shit. And I am like, damn, like, I don't know about it, but I'm interested.
I have those DMs still.
Yeah. And it was for sure unlike anything that I had ever seen, unlike probably anything that had ever been done. And looking back, it was just like exceptionally interesting. I didn't particularly get it, but I probably wasn't even supposed to. As much as like the messaging is shared between what people want to see. The sad fact of the matter is that yes, like we are really still like replicating this system. So I think the more we can just draw attention and awareness to other types of people and expressions, I think we're very aligned there.
I can do a dovetail into Frank Stella, because that same kind of energy we had in shitcoin and a lot of Misha's projects with Snark, we were actually able to bring into our Stella project, because Frank Stella is a total badass. Like, his life is amazing. He has the best stories. He just was, always in the avant-garde and pushing boundaries and doing really cool stuff and inspiring to so many people. And so when we were doing this with him, we didn't just, these geometry NFTs that we sold, there were 22 works. They were like seed concepts based, seed 3D prints or seed 3D objects based on like concepts that appear in a lot of his sculptures. And we didn't just give a JPEG or give a video. It's like a whole package. So I view it as a bundle. So you get the JPEG, you get the movie, but you get these like VR files, you get augmented reality files. We gave people the ability to 3D print. So here we go, demo.
Cool.
This was just a quick demo we made, but like everyone that buys one, you can get them on the secondary market right now. Like, if you get one, you have the option to 3D print in any way you want. We also gave people the ability to remix them. So, we had during our public sale, like at least 60 people, they all were sharing their like recuts of Frank's work, which was pretty inspiring to see, like an engaged community based on this 86-year-old artist, like seeing new light. And the fact that he like released it is kind of insane. Someone of his stature that normally sells for millions of dollars, he kind of gifted to the world his IP, and let it rip. And we showed him the videos of people remixing it. He was really inspired. We did a cut of it on YouTube, just home video footage. And he even joked like, okay, if I use this idea, do I have to like credit them? Do I have to like pay them royalties? So it was fun to see him be inspired by people, be inspired by him. Yeah.
My favorite, so we were, when we were shooting that video, it was in his basement in the building that he's lived in since like the 60s or 50s. It's in West Village. And in his basement, they have this display that's like literally like 20 feet by 8 feet. It's enormous, right? So his son, Peter, is putting up all of these different remixes, and we're kind of getting Frank's reaction to many of them. And I remember he's looking at one. Like, I don't remember which one, but it didn't make the final cut of the video, but it was like one of my favorite moments. He's looking at it silently, and he says, if I lived for 1 million more years, I would never, ever create something like that. Almost like, at first it felt like very negative, right? Like, just like, why would you do that? And then he goes, but I can't stop staring at it, like that was actually super nice.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, tell me, let's like rewind it for everybody, because it is such an incredible project to take, like a legacy artist who's kind of at, the end of their career, to transition them into just like a totally new medium, and to be so open again, to have almost everything like to be printed and to be remixed. And how did this kind of come about as a product and a concept?
Well, this is where, again, it's probably, kudos to Artist Rights Society. And I totally encourage any artist to sign up with Artist Rights Society, because it doesn't cost anything to sign up, and you get a lot of this pro bono kind of benefits. like legal advice and different access to different things. But because they clear the copyright, they were never really in the position where they would have any conflict with the artists. They worked on behalf of artists. And so there's a lot of kind of like goodwill that they have with this, artists that they represent, like Frank. And so they, for example, right now, the big news with OpenSea and the resale royalties, which we could go into or not, it's we could decide. But for Frank Stella, this was critical. The guy sells for crazy amounts at all auctions, and he has never until now received a resale royalty in his life, right? And he's, with Artists' Rights Society, they are trying to lobby Congress to push like a law that could be at least somewhat similar to what's going on in Europe, where resale royalties could be remitted. It could be a legally accepted kind of law that would allow artists to be remunerated when their work is resold. But that is not the case, and he was kind of. They approached ARS in early last year to explore an idea for a project, and they wanted to basically just learn more about the space. But the thing in particular that excited Stella's was the resale royalties, which is like basically, as we were releasing the project, came under like huge attack. But last spring, when we were having this conversation, it was just an accepted fact that all NFTs have this ability to, specify resale royalty percentage. And Frank was literally kind of really enamored with it. And he didn't do it because he wanted to collect resale royalties, but he thought that if he, puts himself in the game with his kind of name and legacy, that he could bring attention to this. And so this was really important for him to do this project. But then on top of it, if you look back at Frank's history, he's constantly evolving, constantly changing, from paintings to sculpture. And so this is not really necessarily something that he just, did at the end of his career. I would say it just was for him to like an experiment of sorts. And we kind of caught him at the right point, in the sense that he was interested in it. It was great that his son, Peter, was really kind of helping out with communication, helping out to arrange meetings with Frank at his studio, and to allow like us to essentially explain to Frank what ideas currently dominate the space, what is important for this kind of, quote unquote community. This is where we were kind of presenting the ideas of remix rights and 3D printing rights. And he was game to explore it. He was actually kind of interested to have this almost a dialogue through these remixes. These works are really like seeds for people to explore, to bring them into the physical space, or to come up with something new.
There's something really cool. There's this great interview he did, I think with Whitewall, about the project, and he was asked why are the geometries white? Because if you go right now in the secondary market and go to buy one, you see they're all white. And he's like, well, they're not actually white at all. They're like, these are properties we ascribe to them, but really the geometry is it's a geometry. It's a mathematical geometry. It's almost like an energy you're buying. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world, because he's selling like energetic structures. That to me is a geometry. And they come in these different forms, a star, these tubes, and that's the NFT. And how else can you sell an energetic structure? Like what other medium? And that's an NFT. Like you pretty much can only do that on the blockchain. So I view it, he's been making these models for decades, but I viewed this specific project as Web3 native. It can't exist elsewhere.
I think that absolutely rules, because I just talked about this as well. There is an incredible, like, energetical, spiritual element to this, in which even if everything disappeared, there is still what that relationship means and signifies to the people that are involved.
Yeah.
And like now I've been going to these places all over the world, conferences, and it's just like friends everywhere and like-minded people. And you already know, because you're in these groups and communities, that like we have found a new way to begin to like organize and ascribe value and like give gratitude and thanks to what people are doing. And this is a really cool kind of like shared structure of value or energy. And if, you know, Bitcoin is like the original proof of work and capturing energy into the idea of a token, well, here all these people and artists are doing really just the same and being able to like share that and distribute it. So I think that's an incredible point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Should we move on to the latest project you guys have been working on?
Yeah, it's really awesome. Let's do it.
Sure. I don't know if we're that great at explaining it, but we will give it a try, because we are now just formulating almost like we forced ourselves to write the description of the project, and there was like a fight to be had. At first, let me first speak a little bit about Zebran. Zebran Verstig is the artist. He's a Brooklyn-based artist, although he spent a lot of time in Chicago. It's someone that I've known since the early days, like when we were doing the Yves Sussman project. I remember he came over one time and we just discussed his work, and I was always hopeful to do a project with him, because if you ever wind up at Zebran Verstig's, I think it's zebranverstig.com. And at first, it's not clear. The navigation of the site is really kind of strange. It's kind of like a rabbit hole when you click through it, and then all of a sudden you see what looks like a portfolio of images. It's actually, each one is an individual project, and his projects are insane. And if there is an artist that was like Web3 ready 20 years ago, it's Zebran. I mean, pretty much any one of his projects, like, you know, and when we started talking to him, or like, you know, earlier this year, at the end of last year, I said, what do you want to do? And he's like, well, just take a look at my website and see if anything speaks to you. And it was just like the worst suggestion. It's like, you know, like me going to like an ice cream shop and choosing different flavors. I just can't decide. I guess I'll go with chocolate, but it's tough.
100 flavors, like.
But there's this one thing that kind of was interesting when I visited his studio, is I started noticing he had this whole generative works that he has basically been perfecting over the past like 10 or 15 years. It's these like almost like abstract digital paintings. It looks like it actually very much looks like your background. And in some of these works, sometimes he does it over, let's say, front page of New York Times, and sometimes I started seeing images, and so we started talking about his whole practice of scraping internet for various types of data. And this one project that kind of we were discussing is where he was pulling images from Getty Images. And so we started talking about it, and then he started saying how he looks at these generations for, you know, days at a time, and he has a hard time on, you know, like even fathoming how, you know, what the computer is pulling. And so we started conceiving this notion: what if we give people the ability to kind of curate time? And then we had this like long discussion over how, you know, when we think back of, let's say, I don't know, 2022 that just happened, there are certain things that happened during the year that are very vivid in our memories. And it might be because, you know, some news channels were active at pushing, you know, certain storylines, but we almost like curated that moment of time, that span of time through these moments. And so we started thinking, what if this algorithm can start actually generating content based on what is trending at the very moment that you're looking at the image. And so the project, essentially, the magic of this algorithm is that every 10 or 15 minutes, it looks at what is trending in different subjects on Google. And it could be celebrity gossip, or it could be an earthquake in Turkey, it could be the war in Ukraine, it could be elections or World Cup. And depending on what's trending at that very specific moment, the algorithm then goes out and tries to find visual information that relates to it. Sometimes it's right on, sometimes it's off. I saw it trying to generate something on Drake yesterday, and it was pulling these ducks, which I'm guessing is that Drake is also a duck. And it was kind of funny that the algorithm was misfiring because it didn't understand the difference between a rapper and a duck. But what is kind of fascinating is that we're going to run this project as a performance of sorts. It's going to run for a year. We anticipate that over the course of the year, the algorithm will generate somewhere between 35,000 and 40,000 generations. And at any one moment, you will see the last maybe 6 or 9 of them on our platform. And the collectors who chose to buy these moments, they will initially start with this empty canvas, and then they will curate time essentially by choosing moments. And if a moment is not selected, it will be essentially lost in time, just like moments are lost in time all the time. Basically, we don't remember necessarily what happened. Like the earthquake in Turkey was something that was super vivid about a month ago, and now we're moved on. Our kind of the news of the day is always kind of overpowering our mental memory. And so we're actually kind of excited to have this community of collectors curate these moments, and we will see what will happen at the end of the year. The moments that will be selected will ultimately represent this passing of time through the eyes of this collector community.
They're very gorgeous, very intricate. He's been doing this like forever. Like these are quite refined, and we're super excited to see what the final collection will be. The community is part of that. Like when you curate something, your name will be on it. So if you mint one of these, Colborn, we're going to see the memory you chose, and maybe one day you'll sell it and people will trade on what Colborn decided, and like the collectors of our time are part of this artwork as well.
Yeah, I mean, that is super vivid to me. I tell people all the time that like each of these does become a fragment of identity in the same way that like hearing a song sparks such vivid memories. Like these artworks, I almost know exactly where I was, who I was when I collected it. So to like directly relate that relationship into this project, it sounds incredible.
We're excited to see like what if it's like goes towards sports more, goes to politics, or there's a lot of erotic content too. What if we learn that our collectors are all into the lesbian artwork that's generated? Like who knows? It has the potential to be serious and playful and profound and stupid all at the same time, and I love all of it.
How are you feeling about like, I think crypto arts, this new domain, this area has gotten more serious. It's gotten more professional. It's gotten, frankly, like more interesting. We just had a major donation to LACMA. We just had the Pompidou acquire a bunch of works. What are you hearing about the ways that people are talking about this? And are you feeling kind of an increasing excitement to artists that want to participate?
I would say definitely yes. I mean, like I mean, it's still obviously there's still a lot of kind of question marks that are going to be probably hanging on top of this for a while. But just like with anything, whenever you are pushing something new, there's going to be people who are going to be questioning it. And I remember that, like at Snark, we were really early in trying to pull in traditional artists into the space. In the beginning, it was this kind of, there's all this negativity. I remember that was on the heels of all these like ICO crashes and cryptocurrencies. And there was all this rhetoric about not trusting it. And it was hard. And then there was the boom. And then like post Beeple sale, whenever you spoke with any serious artists, they kind of didn't know where to even plug in, like even Casil's shitcoin was in essence almost like, it felt like an expression of the feeling that many artists were experiencing when they were looking at the space. It was just ton of everything from like really quite interesting works to a lot of garbage. I mean, I guess all art is like this, but at that point specifically, it just seemed like anyone who was willing to mint any, visual information had a chance to success. It was kind of crazy. And a lot of them didn't want to jump on this bandwagon of like hype. But what I'm seeing a little bit more now is ever since we've had a few of these serious artists, including someone like Frank Stella, it gives kind of more legitimacy to the technology and the community, and the fact that this is really here to stay, and it is interesting enough to explore. And to me, whenever I speak with artists, I talk about this, like, again, digital works. If you ever go to any of these like art fairs, like Art Basel, really we're still living in the world where at these major art fairs you are seeing predominantly physical artworks, but digital, in my mind, is actually super exciting, because you have a technology that's flying at the speed of light, connecting thousands of people through a singular experience. It's in my mind, it's perfect for artists to explore and to bring through these like social connections, through these pods of energy that Matt was talking about, into the space. And actually, once you add on top of it, strong artists who are willing to push the envelope, willing to experiment, willing to figure it out, willing to sit with us for months at a time just to understand how this works, you can create things that are, super interesting and engaging and artistically poetic. And this is something that excites me. And I've seen it myself, that when we had these conversations 2-3 years ago versus these conversations now, it's very different questions. I think people are taking it more seriously. Artists are definitely more open to experimenting. The complication is just their inability to do this independently. It still requires hand-holding. It still requires teams like ours, and not everybody is very collaborative. A lot of artists want to have more agency and autonomy over their projects, and it's still, unless you're talking about, let's say a digitally native artist whose work is more static, like a video piece or digital piece that can be tokenized, that's been solved, that's easy. But anything beyond that still requires a lot of support, which is not always easy for some of these artists to accept.
We, for sure, you mentioned LACMA and the Pompidou. Our Stella collection as well got picked up by a major museum. We just haven't announced it yet because they're dealing with the mechanics of it. Some of these museums, they just don't know what to do with these wallets and who holds the key and how to like properly archive it. It's really like it takes a second for these to catch up, but they definitely are catching up, these traditional spaces. So I know when we finally start talking about this Stella acquisition, it's going to give some energy as well to this concept. And it just feels unstoppable to me that this is part of our new reality.
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting. We had a number of conversations with the museums or people who work at museums. The types of questions that they're dealing with are actually, Colborn, they're super interesting. I mean, like, for example, if you know the museum wallet, right? What is stopping you from airdropping your work? Like this, I mean, like simple things like this.
Of course.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, I deal with that, and it's incredibly annoying. Yeah.
Yeah, you would be the expert. Like, we were really annoyed that people were airdropping stuff. And then it's like, okay, do we like go in and just delete them all the time? But then you don't want to go into your cold wallet that often.
Annoying. It's so annoying.
Yeah, what do? You just let it go.
Yeah. I mean, and then on OpenSea you can hide it, but it's how do people actually see and experience it? For the most part, it's on our website, right? It's not really on. So, the fact that other things are there, it is what it is. But it's us kind of like saying this is what it is actually, believe it or not, what it is.
That was our suggestion in the moment, to talk about having a curated presentation of the wallet as opposed to
that's funny too, because I remember Rob Ness. This is a weird example, but I remember Rob Ness sent something to Anthony Hopkins' wallet when he announced that he was buying something, and it probably wasn't Anthony Hopkins, but the Anthony Hopkins team did go and then burn that artwork, and he was like, "What the fuck?" Yeah. Okay, guys. Last word is yours. Please let people know where they can find you, where they can get in touch.
Sure, Matt, go for it.
Yeah. Well, Arsnl.art, spelled ARSNL.art. Everything's there. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram. We have a great Discord. All our drops will be there. The Zebrin upcoming projects there. That's the easiest way, social media.
Yeah, and Zebrin's drop is in slightly less than 2 weeks. So we're penciling it in around March 12th, March 13th. But we have a couple of more drops coming up in April and May. So definitely follow us. And, we're just hoping to bring cool art into the space. And, it's really for everyone to enjoy and explore. So let's do it.
I want to give just a special thank you to you guys. We had Matt and Misha, Arsnl Art. I'm Colborn Bell, Museum of Crypto Art. Thank you to DMINTI for putting us all together. And it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Colborn. Museum of Crypto Art is like my favorite. So go and check it out. So just to plug you in, I mean, this is like you're part of the legacy of all the space. So this has been exciting. Thank you for having us.
Breaking news.